And we are live. We're having technical
Oh, great.
difficulties, but we figure that's probably half the fun. So,
Yeah.
Alex,
Is
how
that,
are
how's
you?
that? That's all right. Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
there.
Nope.
Nope,
Huh?
you were there. Oh,
This is why people tune in late to the show.
well, I'm going to take this opportunity to actually open up my files.
That's interesting.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Yes.
There we go.
Perfect. Right. Can you
There
hear
we
me?
go. Yes.
Right. Perfect. Sorry about that. The wonders of internet and living in France, I think. But I think we're good. If you can hear me and I can see you, that's perfect.
All right.
Hello to both of you.
Hello. John is
How you
here.
doing? How was your day out there on the continent today?
It was great. Yeah, you're just starting yours. Like you're about halfway through yours, right? Is that right?
Yeah. It's
Yep.
nearing lunchtime.
Yeah, and yeah, it's like 5 p.m. here, so the sun is starting its slow descent. I live on the sort of west coast of France, so it's close to. You probably haven't heard of any of these towns, but it's close to a town called Angers and a town called Nantes, which is sort of on the west coast. So we're a bit sort of lower down than Normandy, where D-Day and all that stuff happened. A bit sort of lower down, but still in the western part of France. And I'm right slap down in the middle of a whole host of vineyards. So there's lots of. This is sort of the old wine country, like you get in California, but a lot colder. So there's a lot of wine made here. So when I look out my window, I can see the vineyards stretching out towards the horizon.
That's
So
tough.
that's what I'm looking at. Yeah. And you're both on the East Coast, right?
Both in Virginia. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's and thank you so much for doing this just in general for indie authors, because I don't know how many. I was scrolling through your YouTube page just before coming on here actually, and how many interviews have you guys done now? It must be hundreds.
This is going to be like well into over 150.
I think
Wow.
this is 190.
Oh wow!
But some of those are your book, Mike. Your book chapter.
Yeah. So
about 180 of them. No, actually.
So
Yeah.
do you have copies of your books handy, Alex?
I do. Yeah, I have. So I should probably just say hi. So I've been writing epic fantasy for about 4 years now. So I started thinking about bringing a book out in 2019. It took me a couple of years to write. So I think my first book came out in 2021, and that is the Broken Heart of Arayam. So that's like my first sort of series. This is sort of classic epic fantasy, 4 books. I started wanting to write this one because I was fed up of not finding enough sort of shorter, fast-paced fantasies. I was watching Ro, I think you talked about this on one of the interviews I was watching earlier today, that it takes us, the older we get, the longer it takes us to sort of work through a book, with other things going on and having family and other things that we have to take care of. And I was I think for a long time, the sort of epic and epic fantasy is getting more and more geared towards, okay, if this epic has to be like these 500, 600 page novels, something that Sanderson is very, very keen on doing, is making his books longer and longer. And I'm just, I had started having children in 2015, 2016, and my my free time just went into nosedive basically, and I had a lot less time to read. And I was thinking, where are these sort of like really shorter, fast-paced, quick reads that I was looking for, sort of in the vein of what we used to have back in the 18s and the 19s, where we had things like Elric of Merrymonet and those sort of older books that were, only a couple of 100 pages long. I was thinking it's more difficult to find those nowadays, especially sort of traditional fantasy. A lot of trad publishing now, epic fantasy. Your book has to be 140,000, 150,000 words. So I thought I'll write something short that will, be fast for people to read, or be easy to get through, quick to get through. And the other thing I wanted to do was to write something that has sort of older protagonists. There's a trope that I'm not a massive fan of. If people like that, that's fine. But the sort of young orphan who is destined to, find the magic wand or the sword or whatever. And I was saying in Mike's book as well, I think your protagonist is a bit older, Mike, as well, I think. And I find that. Yeah, I find sort of older protagonists more relatable. And looking around, again, this was a few years ago. I think a lot of things have changed since then. But when I was writing my books, I was sort of looking around TradPub and even some of the indie published stuff, and it was often pretty young protagonists. The sort of main books and the best-selling books. There are a lot of younger protagonists, which didn't really interest me as much. I thought, okay, well, I'll write a book about an older protagonist, because I thought there's a bit of a niche there that I could slip into. So my sort of series is that it's older protagonists. It's shorter reads. I think all four. So there's 4 books in that series, and I think all 4 books put together are shorter than Sanderson's latest. So you can get through them. You can get through them pretty quick. And that's what I started with. I feel like I'm talking a lot. Please interrupt me, because I talk fast.
Sarah's actually, you're both right, Alex, you and Sarah. I really hate the 13-year-old kind of saves the world kind of thing. That's why I've never watched Home Alone. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. Because, come on, you can't hit a 13-year-old, really.
Yeah, and
it's sort of, I don't know. I just think it's kind of limiting, right?
It is. Yeah.
Now, having said that, I really liked Harry Potter, right? But he was in a school amongst other kids his own age and being willfully neglected by the adults. And
absolutely. And I think what's quite good about Harry Potter is that the threat sort of grows in magnitude over the novels, right? So the sort of first book, I mean, there isn't this sort of worldwide, apocalyptic, world-ending antagonist. He sort of creeps in later on as the kids get a bit older, and you're right. By the time you sort of get to the end, the last few books, when he's 18 or close to 18, you feel like he's been through enough that he's sort of earned it, I'd say, more than some of these other. You're right. Some of these other fantasy books where they're just sort of thrust in. Wheel of Time, love it or hate it. Wheel of Time, it's kind of like the same thing. I mean, all of the protagonists start off pretty innocent and pretty useless, to be honest, and sort of then grow in power and strength over time, which a lot of people like. I think that's why the Wheel of Time does so well. But I'm one of those people who isn't a massive fan of the Wheel of Time. I think it's pretty slow going. I think it drags a lot, and I think most of the protagonists aren't really that interesting, to be honest. So yeah.
I think what bothers me the most about having a young protagonist like that is all the rest of the world takes them so seriously. When no.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if it I mean, if a sort of 16-year-old came up to you in the street today and said, "Hey, come with me. I need you for some stuff," they probably wouldn't get the same reaction as they do in the books. You're right. Whereas people seem to believe them, without questioning anything about what's going on, which is pretty funny.
So you live in France now. Were you actually born there?
No. So I'm actually English. I was born in a little town called Norwich, close to
Norwich. Norwich isn't a little town.
Well, I don't know. It depends what. So Norwich, great. Yeah. So Norwich is about. I don't know how many it is now, but I'd say it's about 200,000 people there. So
My mother-in-law lives in Bungay.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh, right.
so not too far away.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So I was born
That's
in
a small town.
That is small. Okay, yeah. If we're talking small, that's small. Does it even qualify as a town?
I don't think it does. I think it's like I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a dot on a map. It's
Yeah. So we'll say a fairly small town. Yeah. So I was born in a fairly small town, Norwich. And when I was 12, my dad had the opportunity to change jobs, and he was in sort of public sort of scientific research, and they gave him good morning. They gave him the choice between several towns in sort of like north of England or this town Nantes in France, right? And so he went to visit 3 towns.
north of England, France. North of England, France.
Exactly, yeah. So north of England, if you know, if you may or may not know, but there's what we sort of call the coal belt. So there's the coal mines, most of which have closed now. But the north of England, people won't like me for saying this, but it's become quite a difficult place, I'd say. There's unemployment's quite high since the industry has sort of slowed down. There's a lot of unemployment. There's a lot of poverty there. It's I'd say it's not aesthetically the nicest place to live. I mean, there's lots of nice things up there, but it's not aesthetically a nice place to live. And then we sort of came to Nantes, which is a French town not too far from the coast, and with slightly further south, so with better weather. And and my parents like, language barrier or north of England, and they decided, okay, language barrier be damned, we'll go to, none of us spoke French, but we'll go to France, and we'll try and settle down and learn French. And so
did you have to do that? Did you have to learn French, or
oh yeah.
I'm going to say this knowing the answer. Or were the people there pretty accommodating for you?
Yeah. So the French stereotype is overrated for a lot of things, but the French are not the most welcoming of people. I will say that. So yeah, we had the sort of choice when we arrived in France between either going into an international school, so English speaking international school with obviously all the lessons in English and English teachers and whatever, or sort of going into a fully French school with French students and teachers and whatever. And my parents made a choice, and I think it was the right choice, but they made the choice to just throw us into the French school, so kind of like straight into the deep end. Yeah, Quebec. And yeah, so we were basically pretty much had to face learning the French language head on, because we had no choice, because everyone spoke French. So there was a couple of years there, especially at the start, when it was pretty difficult, because I didn't understand anything that anyone was saying to me, be it my teachers or my fellow my fellow students. And I think there's that sort of, it's quite interesting actually, because there's a sort of not really outcast, I think that's too strong a word, but there's a certain distance between an English person being there and feeling a bit sort of excluded and stuff like that. And I think you sort of see that in a lot of my books, because a lot of the characters in my books are not necessarily pariahs, but they're certainly, I'd say, on the fringes of society. They're not they're definitely not, none of them are socialites. They're all sort of on the edge of of society, and feel a bit sort of left out a lot of the time. And I'm pretty sure that comes from there.
Yeah, I was going to say, and I promise I was actually going to bring this back to the book eventually.
Oh no, that's fine.
So, like in a lot of fantasy stories, there's always this like deep-seated kind of distrust between people, right? There's always a couple of different people, and it's this long-standing, hundreds of years worth of whatever. Well, England and France, yeah.
Oh boy, yeah.
So is it still like that?
Well, it's not like it's not that bad. But yeah, I mean, what basically is the seed of that is that for a long time, large parts of France actually belong to England. There's actually the place where I live, which is very close to Brittany, and Brittany is a part of France that actually belongs to the English for a very long time, and France, much like the US or much like a lot of other European countries, are sort of cut up into these various sort of states. Each one governed by a sort of independent baron or lord or whatever. And these states occasionally got taken over by the English. So there was a quite a large swath of French history where actually half of France actually belongs to the English, and all this stuff you hear. I don't know if you heard of Joan of Arc. All this stuff about Joan of Arc. And that was during the we have what's called the 100 Years' War that happened between France and England. It really did go on for pretty much 100 years, where they were Henry V and all of that was the Battle of Agincourt, which is a well-known French-English battle, which was actually made into a play by Shakespeare. Shakespeare, there's the Henry V play with all that. So it actually went on for a very long time. So there's a lot of animosity there. I think since pretty much the First World War, or maybe a little bit before the First World War, there was what's called the Prussian War, which is a little bit before the First World War, when what's now sort of Turkey and the Prussians invaded France, and England sort of came to their aid a little bit there. So I think within the last, say, 100 years, relations have got a bit better, but there's that kind of there's still that kind of traditional animosity. I don't really know. I'm trying to think of what the US equivalent could be. Would it be Canada? Would it be, there's sort of like that extra.
Not Canada, just Quebec.
Just
I grew up 9 miles from the border of Quebec.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're North America's France.
Well, there you go. Yeah. So everyone hates people from Quebec.
Right? It's all about language.
So,
yeah.
Alex, my favorite story, a couple years ago, I guess the Bayeux Tapestry, France lent it to England.
They did.
And they said, and we will, trade with them if they have anything of cultural significance close to this or something like that.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, those are neighbors.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this real quick. Is your wife French?
Yes. Yeah. My wife.
So we won't bag on France too much then.
Oh, you can. Oh, yeah. No, don't worry about it. She's not here.
We've been given permission.
No. But I mean, there are some great things in France. If we want to just look at the positive side just for a few minutes, the best thing in France by far is healthcare. So healthcare is like in Canada, not Quebec, Canada. It's 100% free, so you don't pay anything if you go to a doctor. You don't pay anything. I have a condition that I have to go and see the doctor about once a month. I never pay anything. Hospitals are free. If for whatever reason you have to take sick leave, that's paid. So it's paid sick leave. All of those things are really great. Education is free here, so you don't pay anything for education apart from some sort of private schools, but public education is free. Unemployment, you get unemployment benefits just for, I think you have to work for, if you work for over 3 months, so that's not very necessarily a very long time, you can start getting unemployment benefits. So the sort of social equality and social benefits French people have is pretty good.
The reason we hate them.
Sorry. What did you say? Another.
I say that in jest. I said it's just another reason we hate them.
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
You're jealous at that point.
Yeah. I completely agree. So that's the good thing. Yeah. And then on the other side, there's a lot of arrogance here. There's a lot of don't get me started on French people talking about food. That's a big thing here, and French people refuse to believe that anyone else has better food than them, where that's consistently false.
Have you ever heard the difference between heaven and hell, the European version? The difference between heaven and hell?
No, tell me.
No? Oh, okay. Give me a minute. It's been a while.
Okay.
So in heaven, the French are the cooks, the British are the police, the Germans make the car, the Italians are the lovers, and the Swiss run the trains. Okay? Hell is very similar, except the British are the cooks, the French make the cars,
Oh,
The
no.
Germans are the police, the Italians run the trains, and the Swiss are the lovers.
Yeah, that's actually not bad.
It pretty much tracks, doesn't it?
That's not bad. So have either of you ever been to Europe? I guess Euro if you have family, no? Or,
Yeah, I spent a year in Sicily and 6 years in England.
Oh yeah. What do you think of Sicily?
I gained like 35 pounds.
Yeah,
It's
all pasta.
a tortellini and sipping whiskey diet, man. It was no, it was good. It was a good time.
Yeah. What's great about Europe is that you can, it's very we're sort of distances are a lot more
It's very doable.
easier to it's easier to change country here. It only takes us in 4 or 5 hours I can be
I drove from Sicily. Well, obviously took the ferry to the mainland. Drove to England from Sicily.
Oh really? Oh wow.
So we went through Switzerland and Austria, West Germany, Belgium, grabbed the ferry and got to Felixstowe. So yeah, it took like I don't know, it took like 4 or 5 days, something like that.
Yeah. How long do you think it would reckon to cross the states? Longer, I guess.
How fast are you driving? How much are you stopping?
Yeah, exactly.
I've done it in less. I've gone from Eastern Washington State to Virginia.
Right.
I think I did it in 4 days.
Oh yeah.
But those were some long days.
Yeah, I was going to say that's
15
driving
hours in the seat.
Yeah, my brother drove from San Diego to Kentucky, but he went through Texas because the speed limit was 85. But yeah, I think he said it's 4 or 5 days. It's over 3,000 miles. So what?
5,000. You've got another day, at least another day to get to the coast. So
yeah. So it's 8 hours for me to get here from Kentucky where they live. So yeah, it's like 5,000 kilometers across. So yeah, it's a hike.
And a lot of it's super boring.
Yes.
Yeah.
I give to you North Dakota and Montana. Kind of gorgeous, but wow, it's just a long straight road.
You have to have some good music or some good audio books, I guess. If you have some.
Yeah, there you go. Do you do audiobooks with your stuff?
I started just a few years ago actually. So I think that so the books came out starting 2021 and 23 basically. So over the course of 2 years, those 4 books came out of that first series, and then after they'd sort of come out, I started looking to audio. The main problem we have here, not being in the US, is Audible have this sort of ACX program where you can you share royalties. You might have looked into this. I didn't see if you guys had audios, but you do. Yeah, for becoming a druid, right?
Yeah.
And so I did. What did you do, Mike? Did you go through ACX or did you?
Yep, ACX.
Yeah. So the advantage of that, obviously, is you pay a lower fee to get your book recorded, and then you share royalties on sales, right?
Actually, no, I paid outright for it, so
you did?
I own it.
Oh, great. Oh, okay, fair enough. Yeah, so you basically paid for the sort of upfront for the narration, right?
Yeah,
and one day I'll make my money back, maybe.
I was gonna say, yeah. One day. So I looked into that as well. The problem is A6 is only, unless something's changed since, but when I looked into it, it was only open to a sort of select number of European countries. I believe the UK was one of them, and then the States, but it wasn't open at the time, at least, to European countries like France or Germany or whatever. So I couldn't actually go through A6, which was unfortunate, because like everyone, I don't necessarily, I mean, this is my hobby, so I don't necessarily have a lot of money to invest straight up into audiobooks. And then I went through this company called Findaway Voices, which you may have heard of, which is the sort of I don't know how they would qualify themselves, but they're kind of like, they're a bit of a middleman, basically. So you go through them to record your book, and then they distribute it. It's kind of like Draft to Digital, if you've ever used their services. But you basically you basically record your audiobook, upload it to Findaway Voices, and they will then distribute it to a whole host of distributors. I think they're up to 30 or 40 distributors now, including Audible, but they also have less known distributors like Chirp and is it Story something or other, and even places like Spotify, they distribute to Spotify, you know. So it's a way to get your audiobook out to a whole load of distributors, and also not having to jump through the hoops of Amazon or you know, those sort of places. And when I saw that, I then went on to Upwork. So Upwork is kind of like Fiverr, but
yeah.
You might have heard of Upwork. Yeah, so where you can find lots of different people, including narrators. And I listened to about, it must have been a good dozen, I think, before finding someone, a British guy who actually lives in the US. So conversely, the opposite of me, basically, they went the other way. And so I worked with him to record the first one, and I've done all four now. In fact, the last book in that first series of mine, which is called The Obsidian Eyes of Cleef, which looks something like this. So that just came out a couple of weeks ago. So.
All right. Nice.
It took a while, so you know, it's taken about a year and a half to get all of those recorded.
Do you publish and audio strictly in English, or do you make a French version?
So audio is only English. What I've done, I have French versions of my books as well, but I didn't translate them myself because I don't think my French is. I guess my French is all right, but it's probably not quite good enough. It's not the standard that I'd like it to be for people to read my stuff in French. So I went through a translator for that. So that's the books are published in French as well. So my wife can read them, my friends and stuff. And but that was interesting working with a French translator. She's called Sophie, who also lives in the US. And she it's interesting because when you read your own stuff back and it's been translated by someone else, we always talk about author voice, you know, your sort of voice has been changed a little bit because someone else has been thrown into the mix. So you can still see some of your stuff there, sort of on the sort of undercurrent of your stuff. And then there's, you know, her voice, which then comes sort of on top of that as a second layer. So what you get is something that's completely different. It's a very different, I mean, I like them, but they're different to obviously the English versions, which I find quite interesting.
Everything's in a different order, right? I mean,
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and it is great reading them actually, because I sort of rediscovered them with a different spin on them. Kind of like when I think if you sell your rights to a comic or a TV show or something like that, everything's going to be changed a little bit. And I think as long as the underlying story is still there, you know, it's fine if some things are changed a little bit.
So, Alex, I have a question, because when we have people on, I normally go and buy their ebook, but in your case, I was like, oh, Panacea! I've already bought this book, and you have not talked about that series yet. So, tell us about that series.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Yeah, so thank you for picking it up to start off with, and Panacea is so. There's lots of things I like, but one of the things I've liked for a long time is ancient Greece history. So I've always been a big fan of ancient Greece history. I think it's one of the things my dad taught me, is he likes ancient history a lot as well. And the sort of period I enjoy the most is the sort of classic age of ancient Greece history. So sort of like between sort of like 480 BC and the death of Alexander the Great, which is about 323 BC, something like that. So throughout that whole period is kind of what they call sort of golden age of Greece. So it's when we get democracy, it's when we get films like the 300, you know, they're from that sort of period, you know, the Spartans, the building of the Parthenon, the Acropolis, you know, all of that stuff, all of that is from that kind of period. So those sort of 100 years, you know, Pericles and all of the famous Greek people, you know, Socrates and all those people, they lived in that sort of time. So it really was a really interesting age for Greece and for Europe as a whole. Anyway, I'm babbling, but what I want to try and say is that so I had that sort of love of Greek history, but I didn't really want to write historical fiction because I'm too lazy to do all the research. There's a book, I think, on my shelf actually. There's I don't know if you've heard of a guy called Miles Cameron, or Kristen Cameron, as he sometimes writes. So he writes, I'd say, proper historical fiction, and he's written a whole host of different historical eras. But he, one of my favorite series of his is called Killer of Men. Sorry, beg your pardon. And this is sort of set in the sort of same time as what I'm doing, and the same types of stories, but that is definitively historical fiction. So he's done all the research into, the exact number of steps it takes to get from one town to another, and did the Greeks have towels, and how many blonde-haired people were there in a village, and that sort of thing. So that's really interesting, but that would just that'd just be too much for me. So my idea was to take the things I liked, so the interesting parts of that sort of period of Greek history, and then mash them up with mythology, so that way you can do what you want. So it's set on these series of books, Panacea, Metanoia, and Titanica. They're set on so this is Panacea. They're set on a completely fictional place, and so I don't have to worry about getting anything right historically, and we're going to find a lot of mythological creatures there as well. So this is the second one, Metanoia, which looks like this, and then we've got the third one.
Who does your covers, Alex?
So this is obviously you can probably tell this is Felix Ortiz, who does
Nice.
a lot of indie covers, and then it's Sean King, who does the typography. So I really wanted to work with Felix for these Greek inspired books, because I thought he would be the right fit for this sort of kind of like grungy, crunchy. You can see on these books there's dirt flying around the place and mist, and and that sort of thing. And that's the kind of I wanted to really. My fear of writing these books was when I put them out was people that sort of buy them looking for historical fiction and get disappointed. So I thought, okay, the cover has to be as far from historical fiction as we can get. So I thought I'll put a Minotaur on there, and I'll put this big sort of grungy font, and this guy with this flowing cloak and whatever, and hopefully no one can buy that thinking they're gonna be reading historical fiction.
Well, I hope not with the X that size.
Exactly, and
has something to say about that X
with human skulls on his belt. So yeah, some people did buy it thinking they were going to get historical fiction, but I don't really know how they got that vibe from the cover. But anyway, there are some people that were upset it wasn't historical fiction. But anyway, that was the idea. So to mix like mythology. So I don't know if you've seen have you heard of this this guy called Harry Holhausen, who's a sort of 60s stop motion special effects guy, and he did the most famous thing I think he did was Jason the Argonauts, where these sort of skeletons come to life. Yeah. So all of his films were inspiration for these books as well. So Clash of the Titans, which is a later one he did, sort of 80s one. They did a terrible remake a couple of years ago, but yeah. All of those books, so sort of so Greek mythology and Greek history sort of smashed together.
So in your books, I'm very good at buying books. I'm not as good as about reading them. But do you have Greek gods in your book, or is it just humans and creatures?
Yeah, so that's the kind of twist actually, is that so what we know at the start of these books is that the pantheon, so how could I describe the pantheon? So the pantheon is the Greek gods, basically, the hall of the gods. So the pantheon in these books is completely female. There are no male gods whatsoever. So the pantheon is ruled by Hera rather than Zeus. There's no more Ares. There's no more Ares. There's no more Hephaestus. All those that not only do they no longer rule, but they're sort of they've become almost forbidden. So any sort of all of their temples have been destroyed. Or any priests or whatever have been burnt. Their statues have been melted down and made into chamber pots and things like that. It's sort of heresy to even to speak the name of any of the male gods, especially Zeus, who's absolutely the worst. And so that's the kind of twist on the classic Greek mythology, is that it's been so long that these gods have been exiled. That's why the trilogy is called the ruined gods. So the ruined gods are the male gods that have been exiled from the pantheon. It's been so long that they've sort of been forgotten. They've faded from memory, and I think it's not a spoiler to say, looking at the covers, that they eventually re-emerge and set up a sort of conflict between the male gods and the female gods. And
did you write anything, a story around that takeover, or is it just kind of, this is the way it is?
Did I write anything about the
fight between the gods, where the female gods took over?
Yeah, so that's kind of a mystery, right? So that's what you're going to try and discover throughout the series. So the only thing we know at the start of the book is that Hera's been terribly disfigured. So she's all burnt down one side of her face, and all of her hair is gone from one side, and she's very bitter, and she's very cold and uncompromising, even with her own Athena and Aphrodite, who are her niece and her nieces. So we know that something strange has happened, but we don't really know exactly what's happened. So we don't know what was the actual thing that led to this massive falling out, and both of them trying to kill each other. Not only did they both try to kill each other, but the sort of cosmic shock of these two godlike forces, fighting, was basically cataclysmic. So there was massive forest fires that wiped out half the population, and earthquakes and tidal waves and things like that. So they also didn't help the human race a lot, that they had this falling out, and the humans have become a bit distrustful of the gods as a result.
All right. So you're covering a lot of ground
there. Yeah. It's really interesting, and I think, again, I'm always trying to look to try and fill these sort of voids of in fantasy, where I'm not finding, as a reader, I'm not finding these sort of things I want to read. I think there's a lot of historical fiction about the Greek period. I don't think there's a lot of epic fantasy based on ancient Greek mythology. I don't think there's a lot of that, apart from mythology itself, obviously, which is fantasy. But there's no sort of like modern fantasy based on Greek myth. And there's things like Percy Jackson, which I like Percy Jackson. But again, that's more sort of Harry Potter, it's more sort of young adult. But I always like writing, and the advice I'd give to authors just generally, I think you guys would probably agree, is that you should write something you'd be interested in reading, because you're going to be rereading your own stuff over and over and over and over again. Then we do the audiobooks, you're going to be listening to it over and over again. So it has to be something interesting and something you like. When I first started, I don't know if you guys did this, but when I first started, going into indie publishing, I was sort of part of all these Facebook groups, looking at how to market your book, how to publish your book, how to all these things. And there were a lot of people saying, oh yeah, but the easiest way to make money is just write to market. So go and look at top 100, fantasy, or go and look at for time being. When I started, it was dragons, right? That's why Ryan Kell he did so well, because his books were based on dragons, and there's this whole thing about dragons for a while. So it had to be dragons. And if you write to that, that readership, your book will sell better than if you're writing about, I don't know, minotaurs. And I was like, yeah, but I don't want to write about that. So you have to. I think you guys is probably the same, but you have to find that balance between writing something that you think people are going to buy, but not sort of selling your soul and writing something that's not interesting at all.
Yeah, the same holds in any industry, right? I mean, there are still French car makers, right? Despite the fact that nobody wants one.
That's true. That is true. And yet they carry on regardless.
In the 80s, I forget who it was. They made something called Le Car.
Le Car, all right.
Yeah, Le Car, that they sold over here. It was the tiniest little kind of Euro car contraption ever.
Right.
And it did not go well
No.
in the U.S. market. Go figure.
No, what's interesting though is that most European cars are French, because the car manufacturers we have here is either the Germans, which make the best cars, so Volkswagen and Audi and those sort of cars, but they're obviously more expensive. And then we have Le Car, and then we have the Italian cars, which are on the other end of the spectrum, the Fiats and stuff like that, which are quite cheap here, but don't have very good reputation. And so basically, if you want a mid-level car here, you're not going to find any Americans making cars here. So French is pretty much
Renault or
you have to go with Peugeot. You have to go with Citroën. We have a lot of Citroën there as well.
They make some of the ugliest cars ever made.
They are, yeah. They've got.
Do they still cover the back wheels?
Oh, I don't think so. I was just going to say, I think they've actually got a bit better over the last few years. But there was a long. Peugeot actually bought Citroën, so it's actually Peugeot Citroën. So they're slowly edging towards a monopoly of the French market. So,
again, to bring it back to books, Mike is like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, sorry, Mike.
How
you're fine.
Is the only way that you can sell it is electronic, or how do you sell paper copies and all that? Because I know you can't be mailing them around.
No. I would say I have like you. I'm sure I sell paperbacks through Amazon, and I use Ingram Spark as well to sell paperbacks to our distributors. And then I have. I go through Broken Binding. They have signed copies of my books, so they will send them out. That's their English, so that I'd say shipping isn't too expensive. But I occasionally send books out to reviewers or reviewers that really want a physical copy. I occasionally send books to US reviewers or international reviewers, and the book's going to cost me $10, and shipping will be between $20 and $25, depending on where I'm shipping it to. So that is a major disadvantage. There are actually several disadvantages of just the time differences, as we saw today. Just the time difference is a bit of a disadvantage. It means I'm not on social media at the same time as anyone else. I'm not really around at the same time as anyone else. Being 6 hours ahead, where you're sort of in the evening when you're going to be on social media, in the morning when you're going to be on social media, it's not when I'm going to be on. So it makes it a bit more difficult to really stay current with what's going on social media. That's a bit, and then you're right. Physical media is different as well. Yeah.
So when you send books out with Ingram Spark, it's like I did this for WorldCon. I just had it printed in England and shipped in England. Yeah. And I found it was actually cheaper to do that than to have it printed in the US and shipped to me.
Yep.
So yeah.
I can't remember where mine are printed, but it's somewhere like, is it Italy or something like that? So yeah, it's printed closer to where I am when I order books for me. But talking about WorldCon, that's my other problem, is that I unfortunately I don't get to go to any of these conventions. If I wanted to fly over to the US, unless anyone wants to pay for my ticket. I can't do a lot of these conventions, which is unfortunate, because I really would like to at one point. Maybe I'll get across to one of the English ones, maybe, but in the UK. But
do they not have them on the continent?
Not really. I mean, not I'd say for English speaking authors or for English books. There's the occasional. I've been to a couple of conventions, but are really strongly skewed towards French authors, I'd say. I mean, there are occasionally one or two incredibly well known, English authors. Sorry, but most of the time it's mostly French authors. I'm just trying to. Joe Abercrombie. I saw Joe Abercrombie. He's been across to France. So they do occasionally get some fantasy authors. Oh, and Terry Pratchett came across one time as well. Yeah, Terry Pratchett. So yeah, I've seen a few authors here, but it's few and far between, to be honest, compared to other places.
So you're kind of forced then to do some advertising.
Yeah, I do advertise a bit.
And...
Yeah, I do advertise a bit. I'm not very good at it. I found Facebook has worked best for me personally. I find what do you think, Mike? Because we haven't really talked about. I'm talking a lot about me, but what do you advertise at all? Or is it more sort of word of mouth or?
I do not advertise I give my books away free a lot.
Yeah.
I go to Comic-Cons. That's where I make my actual money, because the ebooks, like Becoming a Druid, I've just put back down to 99 cents, and I'm just going to leave it there. I tried like 5 months at $3, and I was getting no sales. I'm like, I don't know that there's a big difference between $3 and $1, but apparently there is. So, but yeah, basically Comic-Cons, I make my money, and then I've given away 1,500 books this year, ebooks.
Yeah, that's about right. I've done about the same. But you give away the first in the series, right? That's how kind of you're hoping that will that's how you hook them in. And then if the book is interesting enough, I mean, if they don't like the book, well, that's fine. You know, it's no massive loss. And if they do, then hopefully they go on to us the series. And I think that's the same. I remember when I was starting, a lot of people were like, oh, you know, why are you giving away these free books? It's like you're losing money, but you're not, because the people that were picking up these free books are people that probably wouldn't have bought your book. So it's not like you're leaving money on the table. What you're doing is you're trying to get people, interested in what you're doing, and trying to get people to read your book, in the hopes that I have 4 books. My War of the 12 series is 4 books, and then the Ruined Gods, which is my sort of ancient Greek inspired series, is 3 books. So I have 7 books out now. So what you're hoping is that if someone latches onto one of them, then the read through you'll get through the rest of the series will help a bit offset the cost of giving away free books. So I completely agree with you. But you talked to come back to Comic-Con. So you have a booth, and then you have physical copies, right, that you sell.
Yeah,
and that works well then.
Actually,
depends on the
secret.
Depends on the Comic-Con.
Yeah.
But what I have found is that since I started wrapping my books, and I'll put a wax seal on this as well. And I was selling like 1 hardback for every 3 paperbacks, and now it's very much 1-to-1, because I've just made these much more desirable because they look like a present.
Yeah.
And I sell them at a higher price point and make more money. So that is a secret.
Right, let me write this down.
Do you sell your books for more when you wrap them?
No, but I mean, I make more money on the sale of a hardback than I do a paperback.
Yeah. I actually something I really enjoy doing. Do I have a copy somewhere? Yeah. So I once I finished with the quartet, I did a sort of little omnibus edition, which is quite big. I'll try and get it on camera. Yeah. So this is like a big sort of chunky book. So that's all 4 books, and then I did things like so inside I have like things like, I don't know if you can see that, but I have like sort of character portraits and stuff in there, and I did a couple of extra short stories and stuff in there. So that's a sort of premium version of my books, and that was great. I really enjoyed doing that. And there's a hardback copy of that with I have all the the covers in there without the text, so just sort of the naked covers and stuff like that. And that was great fun to put together, that sort of thing. It's kind of like Kickstarter without doing a Kickstarter, because I think I'd fall flat on my face if I did a Kickstarter. I don't know how these people that do Kickstarters get all these tens of thousands of dollars. It's really, it's quite fascinating to me. I should probably study it at some point. But even authors that, I mean, no disrespect to but even some of the smaller, relatively small, I mean, far larger than us, but relatively smaller indie authors seem to get thousands and thousands of of dollars for putting up a sort of a special edition or a leather bound edition or a special hardback edition and stuff like that. So there's definitely a demand for it. I just don't know. I just have no idea how I'd put something like that together, but it's something that might be worth looking into one day. Maybe you do, Mike. You could do a sort of omnibus edition or something.
I don't really like I don't like really thick books.
Yeah.
But what I do want to do when I finish it's going to be a 7-book series, but books 2, 4, and 6 are actually just novella collections.
Okay.
And I want to just do a box set, and I want to break the novellas each out and get their own. So I'll have 9 novellas and 4 novels, and it's just going to be a box set, and they'll each have their own cover. Yeah. I want to do that. I've always liked the box sets. I never buy them because I'm cheap, but I always liked them. But the omnibus was, I don't know.
Yeah. I definitely see where you're coming from. I like box sets, and I like the sort of consistency in covers as well. I like having those covers, and nothing annoys me more than that darn 500-page limit. Yeah. So Tim, you're talking about
that's a Mike thing. Mike won't read anything over 500 pages.
Yeah. So
that's my rule.
So you're right. And my one, this one here, it's, if I look correctly, I believe it's 498 pages.
Here you go, Mike.
Oh no, it isn't. No. Beg your pardon. No. This is this one has an 800-page limit.
Oh.
So yeah, 800-page limit for this size, I guess it must be. You're right. It's 500 pages for the small ones.
See, the big problem with an omnibus is when you're reading it and you fall asleep and it falls on your face.
You die.
It really, really hurts.
Suffocated to death. There are worse ways to die than being killed by one of my books. Let me tell you that. At least you die, having a good
use
time,
it as advertising.
reading a good story.
Yeah.
I think that's quite, that's if it's, you're right. You just want to make sure the only bad thing is you don't get to the end of the story, so you don't get to learn how the story ends. That's the unfortunate part. But death by book. Yeah, my grandmother. I don't know if you know anyone who does this, but my grandmother, when she was sort of getting up there in her late 80s, she always used to read, when she took a new book, she always used to read the end of the book before the start. She always used to read the last chapter before starting. I was like, why are you doing that, Grandma and stuff? And she says, well, I might die before I get to the end, so I always want to know. Logical. And she read a lot of John le Carré and sort of spy books and stuff, and she was like, I want to know who the killer is, so if I die before I get to the end, at least I won't have that hanging over me. I thought it was quite. I'm going to start doing that now. I should start now at 40.
You never know. Hey, what's your main character like?
So who are we going to go? So if we go with the Ruined God.
The series you're working now.
So the series we haven't even got to the series I'm working on now. Yeah, so the series I'm working on now is actually this is one that's coming out in a couple of weeks. So this is called The City of Mist and Tears. I only have the proof, which is why it's got the great thing going on. City of Mist. Sorry?
Yeah, hold it up a little bit more. Oh, Tears. Okay.
Yeah, City of Mist and Tears. There we go. My phone, perfect as always. So City of Mist and Tears is a new story set in the same universe as the War of the 12 books. So the first 4 books I wrote. So it's set in that same sort of universe, but it's not a sequel. A lot of people said it's a sequel. It's not a sequel. It doesn't have the. Oh, I'm telling people with the covers. This is Andrew Molesky. Andrew Molesky is a Russian artist who I find absolutely Andrew. What did I say? Andrew Molesky. What did I say? I don't know if I said Andrew. It's Andrew Molesky. Andrew Molesky, a Russian author, a Russian artist who I really enjoyed working with, who does some incredible work. Where was I? Yeah, so this is War of the 12. So it's not a sequel. It's a different story, but set in the same kind of universe. So there'll be some throwbacks to people that have read the first series. So that's what I'm working on now. And you're going to find this crazy, but the protagonist is actually
a young kid.
It's a kid. So no, okay. There are two protagonists. So the first protagonist, which most of the chapters are about, is actually a guy who works in the City Watch. So the premise of this, the pitch of this news stories, if you will, is that it's kind of like a nuclear bunker, but in fantasy times. So this sort of city we see in the background here. So this is one of the last remaining cities in this fantasy world, and it's surrounded by this sort of big sea of rolling mists, right? That sort of crash against the walls. The mist can't get over the walls, so the people inside the city are safe, but obviously they're completely isolated, so they can't go out. They can't dig under the walls. They can't. You don't have any flying machines or any that sort of technology, so they're stuck there, right? And the only thing that are keeping these mists at bay is this big sort of amethyst crystal, which is set in the top of the highest tower, which is a sort of cathedral. And that's the only thing that's stopping these mists from rolling over the walls and killing everyone inside. But then you have this problem of trying to make this self-sufficient city, right? So basically, the people are slowly starving because, despite the fact that it's on multiple levels, so there are levels, obviously there are levels, residential levels, there are industrial levels where you get all of the factories and the tanneries and all that stuff, and then you have the sort of the agricultural level. So there are certain levels where there are still crops that are high above the mists, so they can get the sunlight, and there are forests, and there are places that they can get wood from the trees, and they have small ponds. They have some fishes and that sort of stuff. Fish, sorry. But it's not really enough to feed everyone, right? Because before, obviously, they had farmland around the city, which they can no longer access because all these mists have come in. So that's the kind of precedent. So the people are stuck there, and they can't. There's no one that can get in. They can't get out. And the main character is a guy from the City Watch. So he's a captain in the City Watch. And the book starts with him investigating a murder. So there's someone who's been killed on one of the levels, and he's trying to find out who, why, and all of those sort of questions. But obviously, it's someone who's in the city because you can't escape. So he'll track him down eventually, but it's just a matter of time. But so it's navigating all of these sort of labyrinthian levels, and there's this big staircase in the middle, so you can go up and down the different levels and stuff like that. So trying to find out what's going on and what's happening, and then there's this sort of backdrop of these mists that because the other thing we find out very early on is that actually the crystals that are keeping the mists at bay are slowly fading. The light in the crystal is slowly they're being depleted. Basically, we don't really know why, how, whatever. But the consequences, of course, that once all the crystals have run out, there'll be nothing to stop the mists coming in and basically destroying everything that's inside. So that's the two sort of axes of urgency is this watch captain trying to find the killer, and these crystals that sort of fading and needing to find out why and trying to stop it.
Well, we are going to let your watch captain escape from that place really quick. But
of course,
he's going to be escaping into some place that Mike is making up, so I'm not sure it's going to be any better.
Okay, hit me, Mike.
Okay, so we call this the Bald Dome, and I'm going to roll a bunch of dice.
Okay, go for it.
And then I will tell you what the situation is, and then you tell us how it gets resolved.
What's your character's name?
My character's name is Pine, as in pine.
Okay, so Pine has been transported to a remote village nestled in the Misty Mountains.
Perfect, miss. He can't get in, he can't get out.
Oh my god.
You can't make this stuff up. What is your favorite color, Alex?
Oh, I'm a big fan of blue.
So he has a blue fizzy potion, but he doesn't know what it does.
Right.
But if he drinks it or if he throws it at the adversary, 100% it will work, whatever it does. You just don't know what that is.
Okay.
So now you get a choice. He can get a common item or he can get a weapon. If he chooses a common item, he's going to face a common animal. If he gets a weapon, he will face a fantasy creature. And it's not necessarily to the death. It's just what happens when this encounter, he walks upon it, sees the encounter, and you tell us how it ends.
Okay, so he himself, despite being a watch captain, is completely unarmed, right? He's just woken up from a he's been whisked away to this place without his weapons. Does he have any armor, or is he just completely he's just a little tunic, is he?
Just a tunic.
Just a tunic. I think I've got to go with the common item, right? Because it's going to be more interesting to me than a weapon. What's the item?
It might be like a piece of toast or something. You don't know.
So
yeah,
if you'd chosen a weapon, he would have got a quarterstaff, which is
yeah.
But instead, you chose a common item, so he has 3 tallow candles.
Okay, great. I don't quite know what he's going to do. That I do actually, because with the mist coming in, it's going to be quite dark in the evening, and that will help him see his way out maybe.
So if he had the quarterstaff, he would be facing a frost giant. So you probably made the right call.
Whoa! Oh, I got lucky with that.
So instead, you are facing a stealthy cougar.
A stealthy cougar.
ChatGPT came up with these. So.
Oh my god!
So is this like a mountain lion cougar? Or
yeah, exactly.
Like
we're in the Misty Mountains. So that's actually
the bar cougar.
Yeah, we're in the Misty Mountains, aren't we? So the cougar is actually, it must be a mountain cougar. Yeah. I'm in a village, so I suppose what he would probably do, right? I don't know if I'm allowed to do this. So if we're in a village with thatched houses, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try and lure the cougar right into one of these houses, unoccupied, because we're not going to try and kill anyone else, but lure the cougar into one of these houses, and then I'm going to try and shut the door behind him, light my tallow candles inside, and hopefully like burn the whole place down with the cougar still inside. That would be my plan.
Okay, well, I mean, it's your story, so you can tell us how this works.
Though the cougar is stealthy. You did
Yes.
say that. So, would he maybe get the drop on me? I don't know. What you have to know about Pine is that he's not, I mean, he has quite a sharp mind. I don't think he's the stealthiest guy. So that might be a bit of a sort of 50-50 on that one.
Okay.
That's a fine plan.
Yeah.
It's a very fine plan.
And if the worst comes to worst, maybe the burning house will attract attention of some of the other villagers that might come and help me out if they see one of the houses burning down.
Actually, worst comes to worst, the burning house will light the entire village on fire and you'll die too.
As long as they don't find out it's me.
Yeah, exactly.
Because then I might be in a bit of a pickle. But if I could blame it on the cougar, if I could say the cougar, knocked over a candle, try and sort of turn everyone against the cougar, and then if ever the cougar gets out of the burning house, he'll have to face a whole host of angry villagers. I think I think Pine, he's a bit of a smooth talker. I think you have to be when you're a detective or when you're in the city watch. You have to know how to read people, and you have to know how to get people to get people on board a little bit. When you're interviewing people, stuff like that. So I think he could maybe charm a few of the villagers into helping him out.
High charisma roll. Good deal.
Exactly. Yeah. High charisma, low stamina, and pretty low strength as well, I think.
Alex,
he's a bit wiry.
One last thing before we let you off the hook here. So E.O. Montague, one of the folks here, is renowned for always wondering what the artwork is over people's shoulder.
Right.
So that's what he's wondering what that is.
Easy. That is the cover of my first book. That's the cover of my first book. So that's the very first cover of the very first book I wrote. So that's this, The Broken Heart of Aurelian. There you go. See?
Nice.
Yeah.
So that was. I'm sure the same happened with you, but that was. I mean, it's still special when I get covers in for new books, but getting the cover back of the first book you've ever written was really something quite special, because it makes it, it kind of makes it real, doesn't it? When you actually get the cover is one of the last things that. For me anyway, it's one of the last things I do, because I need to know what's going to be on the cover, so you need to have your story well underway, but also because to get my physical proofs, you have to have the page count, because the page count defines time.
Right.
So you can't really get your physical copies until your story's gone through several rounds of editing. So that was one of the first things. The last things I got back was the cover of that, and it made me think I was a bit less of a charlatan. You know, when you actually get your cover back with your name on it and your title and all that, you think, okay, this is actually, it's not too shabby. You know, someone picks this up in a bookstore. You know, it's not. They're not going to think, okay, what the hell is this PowerPoint presentation? It's actually, you know, it's been done by proper artists, and it's thanks, Dim. Hi, Dim. It's done by proper artists. You know, it's been the interior layout I had done as well for this first one, so it was very special to get that back.
Outstanding. Okay, so you had a book that just came out recently?
It's just coming out next month on the 5th of December. So that's this City of Mist and Tears that I showed you earlier. So this is the first book in a new trilogy, as I said, set in the same universe as the War of the 12 books, but different characters, different story, just in the same universe. There's nothing I just wanted to plug very quickly is that there are a whole load of indie authors that are doing a sale for Black Friday. So there'll be lots of indie books that will be available for free during the sale. I believe it's just called the Black Friday sale for science fiction and fantasy. So I don't have the link yet because it's still early days, but check, you know, either my socials or lots of other indie authors
on Twitter and tag Mike and I.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. When I get
share, is
thank
it
you.
too,
That's
is
very
it too
kind.
late to get in on the sale, or?
Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. So yes, it's called the Indie Black Friday sale. So it's between November 29th and December 1st, which lines up, and it's being organized by a guy called James Dullin, who you may know, who's another indie author. And I imagine you can get in touch with him directly. I believe, when is the cutoff date? The cutoff date is November 22nd to get in touch with James. So I know he has a website which is jamesldulin.com. So that's JAMESLDULIN.com. So I'm sure you can contact him there. There's a contact form. And you can also find him on Twitter, but I don't have his Twitter handle, but I imagine it will be on his website. So he organizes this every year. Lovely guy. It's for people that are watching this who or people who will watch this that have either just starting out as indie authors or have been indie authors for a while. These sort of sales where several indie authors get together and they all put their books on sale at the same time are really good for getting the word out, because you're basically multiplying your audience by as many authors. So if there are 20 authors and they all have an audience of 2,000 people, you know, you're already getting into, you know, 40,000 people right there. So it's definitely worth doing. Oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah, if you could tag us on a Twitter post with that information, that'd be awesome, and we'll help.
I'll do that. I'll do that just once we finish up here, if you like. That way you'll have the info, and you can look into it.
I can tell you, Bo Kelly has just put it on the SFF Insiders on the Wordsmith Lounge. He just posted it there. So
of course he is.
If you're in
Bo
that
Kelly is an amazing person. So that's perfect. Yeah, thanks, Bo. That's great. Yeah. So so do those really are I'd say it costs you nothing to put your book on sale, and you just, you know, if you're going through Amazon, you can just immediately change the price directly through your Amazon dashboard. So it really costs you nothing, and I get a lot of positive feedback for doing sales like that, and I discover a lot of other indie authors as well. No Heart for a Thief, that's what James Dillon wrote.
Yeah.
No Heart for a Thief, yeah, which is a great book. So yeah, really do get in on these sales, especially the Black Friday one, and rising tide lifts all ships and all that. Is that the saying? I think that's the saying.
Yes.
All right, great. Well, Alex, thank you very much for joining us. Sorry about the little discrepancy with the timing there, but this worked out pretty well.
No problem whatsoever. And thank you so much for having me on. And just thank you, for putting these interviews together. I'm in awe that you've managed to. I would have stopped after about 2. So the fact that you're getting, I don't know if you said this was 190 or getting close to 190, but you're gonna have to do something for episode 200. You're gonna have to do an extravaganza.
Ooh, an extravaganza, Mike.
Yeah, I don't know what. That's all I've got.
We're accepting ideas.
Oh, okay. Well,
if anybody wants to shoot us an idea, we'll take that.
Yeah, but do carry on doing it, because I've only heard good things for about the both of you. So I think you've helped a lot of people. So do carry on doing it as long as you can, and hopefully you'll have me back on sometime. Maybe once you get through the backlog of authors that I'm sure are wanting to come on. I'd love to come on again some other time.
So if you have a book launch coming up let us know the next book, and we'll have you on. You can talk about it.
That would be great. Yeah, that'd be lovely. Yeah, I'd love to speak to you again. We can do it a bit later. I haven't bought a beverage because it's a bit early for me still. But
it's really
a bit early for you too. We'll do it when we do it next time. We'll do it we'll do it in the afternoon or something, so you guys can have a drink.
That sounds good.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thanks, everybody else.
I can tell you it's going to be a great one. It's going to be a great one.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. See you soon.